Okay, welcome. I'm Phil Dellio, and I'm here with a couple of guys. One, a longtime friend and collaborator. The other guy, someone I've never actually met or talked to, Chris, but we go back. I'll explain that in a second. We go back to the 90s. And we're here to talk about videos because I've just published a book, and this is going to be a general conversation, but I'll mention the book at the beginning. And do you have the copy there, Scott? Maybe you can just quickly hold it
I
up.
knew you weren't going to flash it, so
I don't have a copy, Scott.
oh,
I
you
don't
don't
have no
you don't have a
no.
hard copy yet, yeah.
I
So
ordered some author copies. The book is called We Don't Want to Know. Started it, took me about 15 months to write it, and just published it last week. It's just my own personal favorite videos. It's not, as I'm going to talk more about what it's not. It's not a history video. It's not about MTV. I just wrote about 50 videos that started with a poll and a message board, and I wrote about 50 videos that I really love, and kind of, try my best to tie them all together. So that's what we'll be talking about, music video. So on my, what it looks like to anybody watching, on my left, the top panel is Scott Woods, who's been a longtime friend going back to the mid 80s when we started on a Toronto publication, The Nerve. Scott and I have co-authored 3 books together. One on the 70s, one a collection of quotes, and a weird book we did on Donald Trump before we knew what a real problem he would be. Anyway, and Scott also does the forward to the video book. Scott's launched rockcritics.com a long time ago. I think still sort of has a connection to the site. Can I mention the other site that you?
yeah, of course,
Yeah. And also launched Grill Marcus's site, grillmarcus.net, a few years ago. Worked closely with Marcus on that, then went over to Substack. And Scott, I think now it's just kind of moving away from that. Someone will be taking over that.
Yep.
And on the bottom is Chris Molanphy, who, again, Chris and I have known each other long distance since the 90s when Chris and Scott both wrote for a fanzine I did at the time, Radio On, which was writing about hit singles. In the pre everything age, the internet had barely started, and I don't know, when did you come on, Chris? Maybe the 3rd or 4th issue, I think, approximately.
Yeah, in my memory, I joined. I think I read it for the first time in 94, and I
Okay,
joined in 95, and I
so
did
that
95, 96, 97.
yeah, so that would be about the 3rd or 4th or 5th issue. And that's all Chris has done. So let's move on. No, I'm just kidding, Chris. I've got your bio up here. So Chris does a couple things for Slate. He does a column in which he writes called "Why Is This Song Number One?" and he also does an ongoing podcast. Chris is identified with. He's kind of taken over, I think, from what was his name, Paul Green, Billboard, way back. Is that the guy I'm
I
thinking
mean,
of?
I wish, Paul Grine is still
Paul Green. Okay, is he still
still
doing it?
he
Okay.
now has the awards beat at Billboard, so he's not their primary chart beat columnist anymore. That's been Gary Trust for about 15 years now. But
Sorry
but
about
Paul
that,
is
Paul.
still at Billboard.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Paul. I didn't mean to prematurely retire you there. Chris is identified with a close interest and extensive knowledge of pop charts, Billboard specifically. Chris also does the Slate podcast called Hit Parade. And last year, Chris had the second book, I believe, published in the it's Yale Press, right?
It's actually Duke University Press,
Duke
and
University. Sorry,
mine
Duke
was the third
University.
book in the series.
What came between yours and
right.
Roadrunner?
Yeah.
Hound Dog by
Yeah.
Okay,
Eric Weisbard.
that one
And
was
ours followed each other very closely. They were
okay.
literally like a month and a
Yeah.
half apart.
Okay, Chris wrote a book I very much enjoyed on
Yeah.
Old Town Road, Little Nas X, and
Yeah.
as you
Thank you.
credit him on the cover, Billy Ray Cyrus, um, and Chris has done a whole lot of other things. I could list all the publications, Billboard, Village Voice, etc. So we are going to talk about something that I don't think people really think that much about anymore. And that's probably why it was a weird time for me to put a book out on it. Sorry, I got so many windows here. And I'm just trying to get why can't I get there we go. Okay. I don't think people think or talk a lot about music video anymore. And one reason I wanted to have Chris on, I think he probably pays more attention to it than Scott and I do, which is strange because I just wrote a book on it, but I wrote a lot about old stuff. And I was interested specifically in Chris addressing a couple questions that I did not address in the book. Anyway, we're going to start with one that Scott suggested today, which I thought was perfect as a lead in. Our own personal kind of entry into videos, when we most paid attention to them, maybe how much initial contact we had when MTV came on in the air in the early 80s, or Much Music in our case, through the heyday in the mid 80s, into the Radio On era and beyond that. So either you guys want to start with that?
Chris, you be the guest of honor.
Well, my story is
meeting you in person for the first time. So although
yeah,
you and I have had a phone call before, we did a Pet Shop Boys thing, I think. Right. So
about a decade ago. Yeah. That was a total delight. But my history with the music video is a bit bespoke because I grew up in New York City and specifically in Brooklyn. And the reason why that matters is that there was let's call it now long forgotten territorial dispute in the outer boroughs of New York City over who was going to cable the borough, who was going to put up the cable and have the monopoly for cable television in Brooklyn, Queens, as it was. Even Manhattan was a little late getting cable television, but Manhattan had cable TV by the early to mid 80s. As late as, I want to say, 1987, 88, Brooklyn was still mired in a dispute over who was going to cable the borough. So the reason
was that what that whole Biggie Smalls, Tupac Shakur thing was about? Was it about who's going to control music video?
You'd want to believe that. That would be fun. But anyway, what this meant is that, first of all, my parents were never going to splurge on cable TV, even if it had been available in Brooklyn, because we didn't have a pot to piss in. And, that was, as long as rabbit ears worked, there was no point in having cable TV. But cable TV was not even an option for me in Brooklyn. What this meant was that the first music video show I watched regularly was NBC's Friday Night Videos, which came on the air in 1983. And around, I believe, Christmas of 1983, my family got our first VCR. It was a Betamax, by the way. And the very first thing I wanted to learn how to do was set the timer to tape Friday Night Videos, because of course my parents didn't want me staying up till 12:30 in the morning when that show came on. I'll never forget that the first time I tried to tape it, I screwed up because the way the timer worked on this primitive VCR, you had to indicate, were you recording a show today or tomorrow? And I put today, but technically it was tomorrow, and I got nothing. So it took 2 tries before Friday Night Videos showed up on the tape when I woke up the following morning. But
Chris, can I just ask, do you know what year that was, or roughly?
It was 83, 84.
Okay.
84 was in earnest when I started watching. And one thing I like to think of it is it's a Friday night show. They called it Friday Night Videos, although technically they could have called it Saturday in the wee hours videos, because it came on at 12:30 a.m. And I used to wake up at age 12 at 6 or 7 in the morning on Saturday, and where younger me would have woken up and turned on Saturday morning cartoons, tween me or teen me turned on and rewound the tape on the Betamax and watched Friday Night Videos. And I think this is an apt metaphor, because I later wrote a column in my newspaper in college in which I called music videos cartoons for the post-pubescent. And I stick by that. I mean, they are like cartoons. They're colorful and gaudy and a little decadent and often funny in the way cartoons are. And so I graduated from Saturday morning cartoons to music videos. And it wasn't until my family moved to Connecticut in 1985. My dad got a different job, and in the hills of Connecticut, you couldn't really get TV without cable. And so finally in 1985, my parents plunked down for cable TV, and then I had MTV. And I basically would kill whole afternoons just watching MTV. But I didn't have it for a while. So Friday Night Videos was my lifeline before.
I just want to ask you a question. You stated Friday Night Videos, which I did mention in the book. And I had it in my mind that was pre-MTV, but you're right. It started after MTV. Yeah. Only on Friday nights. Now, NBC at the time, they had Carson and Letterman, right? Both back to back.
Right.
So what happened on Friday night? Carson didn't play on Friday night, or
They had
Letterman?
Carson at 11:30. That was why it was on at 12:30 at night. They had Carson on at 11:30. There was no Letterman on
No
Friday,
Letterman on Friday
and
night. Okay, that's why.
Friday Night Videos was what they showed instead.
Did
And it was a
ABC?
very stylized show. It had like these really slick graphics, and
Yeah.
it was quite memorable.
Did
Um,
ABC have an
one
equivalent? ABC, or was just strictly?
ABC eventually, yes, ABC did eventually have an equivalent. I forget what the name of it was. Um, Night Tracks, I want to say something like that.
Yeah, something
But
I do remember. I associate them with the show too.
they had one too. But Friday Night Videos was sort of the flagship.
Okay. Scott, how did you sort of, you said you had two very distinct times in your life, I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, Chris reminded me of something else. I could maybe stretch it to three distinct times. One would be sort of like Chris, like there was kind of a precursor moment, actually. Much Music, I think. So MTV came on in 81. I think Much Music was 83 or 84. I think
83 or
84.
84.
I think
Might
maybe
be.
84.
Yeah.
But Phil, I don't know if you recall this, and I think somewhere, maybe it's in your book or somewhere else, you seem to express a little bit of like confusion maybe about where you saw some of the early new wave videos. And I did think immediately where I saw some of them. And I know
New
for sure
music, probably the new
Life
music.
Begins at the Hop, for instance, on TVO, TV
Oh, wow.
Ontario. They used to have a show on Friday. It was actually on Friday nights. My brother was the person who got me into it. And I don't even know if it was like, I don't even remember what the title was. I should look it up actually, but they would play new wave videos for about half an hour, maybe just a handful each show. And I know for sure, like, I think like successive weeks in a row, they played Life Begins at the Hop because they definitely knew that video like around 79 or 80. Like it was pretty concurrent with that record coming out. And probably they played like some Elvis Costello and stuff like that. And I don't even think it
I
was
have no
just
recollection at all
early
of
new
those.
wave. You don't remember it, so maybe you just didn't catch it. But my brother got me onto that, and then I think there were a couple other shows outside of the Much range that I would occasionally show stuff. But really, the beginning is really Much Music. Um, I think oddly enough, like I was in college by that time, and I think it was my parents who actually got Much. And when I would go there and go back home for the weekend and I think stay there in the summer, I was kind of fascinated by it and watched as much as I could. And then eventually, I think around 85, 86, after college or near the end of college, I ended up for the first time ever owning my own TV, and I did splurge for cable specifically because I just wanted to watch Much Music all the time. And
Yeah.
I just had it on like radio, probably for a good 3 years. I had a very small apartment for much of that time, like lived in a shoebox, and my TV was quite large. It took up like a lot of the space, but I just had it on, blaring constantly. I think during those years, I probably didn't listen to quite as many albums as I had before because I just always had Much Music on. So, but and I just feel like it really was sort of listening to the radio because I
Yeah.
got into Cyndi Lauper that way, and obviously Madonna and all that. And I mean, I think it was largely through Much that those two in particular did reach me.
Okay.
Then late, by the 90s though, I'd moved to Vancouver and I didn't have cable for years after. The only other phase I would like to mention though is I moved to Vancouver, I think in 1990, stayed there for 3 years, came back at the end of 93. And then the first job I got after coming back to Toronto was as a VJ at the HMV Superstore. And I did that for a couple years as VJ. And we played videos. Like,
Hmm.
so you played videos and CDs, and you're supposed to play as many videos as possible. And I kind of broke that rule all
But
the
how
time.
did you play
I like
videos?
to
How did you play videos? I don't understand.
you had a video player. You had to mix them in.
But
Like
where did but what was
HMV
the
had the big
software?
screen out front, right?
What was the software that you used to play a video? You
It
had like,
was it was like a VHS in a DJ set, like in a
okay,
DJ setup. I was actually trying to think of that today, like but no, we must have because we had a huge live. You'd get these videos from record labels, and
in a
they'd
video
have
format.
like 8 of the current hits, and
That
we
makes
have to. It was actually someone's job to go through every one of those videos and write the starting time. So then when you'd have to cue them up, so I played tons of videos that way. I was sort of into it, and I'd look for kind of neat, obscure stuff to play as well as the hits. But that was like playing a lot of Pet Shop Boys and Madonna, and a lot of CanCon and stuff.
Right.
Honestly, after so I did the VJ job for a couple of years. I stayed at HMV for many years after that, doing other jobs. But after like that moment in the 90s, like I swear to God, I just never once made an effort to watch a video. I mean, I'm sure I
Yeah.
saw some here and there, but it just completely disappeared after about, I don't know, 95, 96. So
Okay, so my story, of course, is different than you two guys. When MTV started, I actually was visiting my university roommate Tom down in Rockford, Illinois. So I saw some very early MTV. I don't think it. I didn't know what to make of it. Probably sat around, made jokes. After that, it wasn't important to me. Much Music comes on in '84, like you said. I was aware of all the famous videos, so I guess I watched some Much Music or got them from somewhere. But the only two times in my life when I really paid attention to videos are when nobody else was. Through the 90s, when I was doing Radio On, a lot of what I wrote about, I heard those songs. This is the part I don't quite understand because there wasn't really any top 40 radio in Toronto. There was sort of a couple of stations that were doing it for a while, but I would often track down songs on Much Music. Now, I don't know how I did that because Much Music had no real schedule. Like they had a lot of different shows. If I wanted to hear a song from the Radio On song list, how did I mean, did I sit there monitoring Much Music? I don't know. I managed
did you
somehow.
have it at home? Did you have it available?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
maybe I just left it on in the background like you, and I would just, with half an ear paying attention, then something, oh, that's on the Radio On list. I better go listen to it. I don't know if I tape stuff off Much Music. I have no memory of that, but I do know that during Radio On's lifetime window, that's when watched a lot of videos, and I ended up writing. When I wrote my song comments for Radio On, I often mentioned the video. When I did the year-end ballots for iWeekly, I would do a separate top 10 video. So I was paying a lot of attention to video then. And the second time in my life, and this is really kind of funny, sad, the last few years of Paz and Job, I'd say even maybe the last decade. I've often mentioned this, you can think it's ridiculous or whatever, but I did not pay much attention to new music during the year. And then it would come November, December, and I would be scrambling around and I would get this like master list of what everybody else was voting for, 300 songs. And then I'd go to YouTube and I'd start going through the list and I'd play, I knew right away if I really liked something, like most songs, it'd be 10 seconds, no, not interested, until I managed to put together a passing job. So I was really paying attention to videos from the late 2000s into the 2010s. It's weird. I mean, I have a number of them in the book. Videos that people probably have never seen because, like you guys, they just maybe Chris still his job would require he paid attention, but most people weren't paying any attention to videos by that time. So I would say those are the two times in my life: the '90s and the from 2007 and beyond. Okay, now we could go anywhere with the next one. Do you guys want to talk about your favorite videos, or do you want to do some general questions about videos first, and we'll get to that maybe later?
Yeah, let's do general questions because
Okay,
Yeah.
I think it
yeah.
might naturally feed into what our favorites are.
Good. So let me start with this question. So videos, even though Much Music comes or MTV comes along in '80 or '81, I think, Much Music shortly after. There were a lot of videos being made in the late '70s, earmarked at specialty shows. Maybe Chris can recall one or two that was playing them in the late '70s. But there's really not much in the way of music video from 65 to 75. There's promotional videos, there's scopatones, the things that there were like videos, but there's no music video as we know it now, even though I did dig up some that I think are very much like that. So my question is, think of all the people who flourished during that time frame. Who do you think would have made memorable videos? And maybe you can think of some artists who just would have been resistant to the form, stubborn like the Replacements, so we're not going to do that, or just not really very good at it.
I mean, there are some that actually were doing ersatz music videos during that period.
Absolutely. Like the
Bowie,
Beatles.
for example. I mean, Bowie
Okay,
leaps to
Bowie.
mind.
Okay, you're right, but I'm thinking of Bowie sort of starts doing that 75 and later. You're right, he was doing it even earlier than that. So there
Yeah.
was some who were experimenting
Space
with
Oddity in
based
'69,
on it. You're right.
Changes,
There's one for
Life
Gene.
on Mars.
Yeah. Okay, those artists are still kind of relatively rare. The Beatles were doing music videos as early as 65, 66 for Rain and Paperback Writer. Most
Yes.
people weren't, though. Someone like Dylan, well, Subterranean Homesick Blues has been turned into a video, but he wasn't doing music videos. The Rolling Stones did a couple, most weren't. If you just think about all the artists from that time frame, who do you think maybe, other than ones who maybe experimented, who do you think would have been really good with video? My thought on it is that anybody who came out of an art school background
Mm.
probably would have been very interested in doing stuff with video. You think of all the English pop bands where somebody in the band or all of them came out of an art school background. And then I'm thinking there'd be others like, I'm thinking, I don't know. There was always sort of a purist, kind of elitist thing about some American bands. Maybe the Grateful Dead would have said, "We're not doing that," or whoever. I don't know. Throw out some names. Who do you think would have been really good at making music videos?
I certainly think if you're talking about the early '70s, that touches on the glam rock movement, and all of them would have been naturals for
Probably
music
would have
videos.
loved to take
I
him to.
mean, picture Mark Bolan of T-Rex, for example. He already was experimenting with short films and conceptual things on video as it was. So I think he would have been a music video star. Elton John, who was friends with Mark Bolan, picture his flamboyance, picture his costumes. As it was, he did do pseudo music videos for like his Christmas single "Step Into Christmas," I think has a music video. But picture the songs from Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Several of those could have been music videos. Frankly, with their evocative Bernie Taupin lyrics, several of them already felt like music videos without music videos. You could kind of picture the video in your head.
I'm
Benny and the
thinking,
Jets, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Funeral for a Friend. These songs sound like music videos to begin with.
and what kind of videos? Elton probably would have made very kind of story videos. I think they would have been tied heavily to the lyrics. I'm thinking someone like Frank Zappa. I'm not saying they would have been good, but I think he would have really taken a video. I think he
Oh,
would
and
have
he
been.
actually
Sure.
he actually did at least one genuine one for "I'm the Slime," and it's actually what I recall. It is actually a good
Was
clip.
that an early Mother's Invention song?
No, it's not that early. It's like I think it's still pretty early. It's like 74, 75. I think
I'm
73
thinking
or 70. Actually, I think it's 73. I think it's off one of those albums like Apostrophe or Overnight Sensation or something. So I
because
think,
I'm thinking even the Mothers of Invention. I could see,
oh yeah,
circa Freak Out. He would have taken a video. I'm
yeah.
curious about the Velvet Underground. They had certainly a lot of personnel at their disposal behind the camera, in front of the camera. Would they have taken video?
I
I don't
mean,
know.
in some ways, it seems like to me the answer to the question in some ways is like, and then maybe it's too obvious because as you would know, anyone could make a good video, really, like if
Right.
they had the good storyline or an interesting concept or whatever. But it just seems like the image conscious stars come to mind as the most obvious, right? Like I was actually thinking of the British invasion, like the big bands, and you mentioned art school, which is part of it, but really Stones, Beatles, Who,
Who? The
and
Who would
King.
have been a video
Yeah, the
band.
Who would have been a great band for videos. But it's funny because those bands are the biggest, and it might not be a coincidence that they are obviously they all had the great songs, which is number first and foremost, but they are very image conscious. Where when you get to the second tier of the British invasion, like I don't know, would Dave Clark Five have actually a very good movie out? What's that movie they did in
A
'64?
while weekend.
Right. It's a
Yeah.
great movie, but even while you're watching the movie, one of the things you're thinking is these guys, like, this is a good movie, but they just can't cut it like next to the Beatles in terms of their looks. They just look like so ordinary. And, maybe that's part of
Or
the,
personality for that matter.
yeah, no, exactly. They just don't have the wit or the image. And I think
Mhm.
that's probably true of a fair number of those sort of second tier British invasion bands now. So it just seems like, yeah, the Stones and the Beatles and Dylan, not British invasion, of course, but
See, I don't know. I
so
just have,
image conscious, right? Like they are very image conscious. You can't deny that fact. They weren't. It wasn't accidental how they portrayed themselves. I don't believe so.
I'm curious about Dylan. And I could be totally wrong. I think he would have won. I think he would have been really resistant. I don't know
I
why.
don't
He
know.
certainly had the wit and the image, but I just don't. It's hard to say.
I just think he's like an event. Like to him, it just would have been. I mean, it's hard to answer the question because
It's all conjecture. I know.
well, and when videos like came out in the 80s, there was the whole question of, is this like taking music, making music too much, making it too commercial and turning music into commercials. But those same in the 60s, it might have been thought more of as this is just another completely creative outlet for us to use. Like that's why the Velvet Underground was a good example because to them it would just be, hey, we can put cameras in front of us and do something neat to our songs. And I don't.
Right.
For crying out loud, their debut album was produced by Andy Warhol. Like
Yeah,
they
exactly.
were,
I'm thinking
they were affiliated with the
yeah,
factory.
they had a filmmaker, in house that might have
Yeah.
wanted to.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only reason I started with 65, obviously, I love music, loads of music from the 50s. I just have a feeling that until the Beatles came along, I think if there had been such a thing as music video, it would have been very performance based. I
Totally.
just, for some reason, I can't see.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe Bo Diddley might have done some weird stuff, but I'm thinking Elvis, Chuck Berry, it would have been just
Well, in the 50s, it was rock and roll movies, right? It was The Girl Can't Help It.
The videos would have
It's
looked
Blackboard
just
Jungle. It's, it's
it,
that
it
stuff.
all would have looked like the Alan Freed movie. So I think the Beatles come along and certainly the first couple of years, let's say the music video starts in 65, judging by that Cream video for I Feel Free that I write about in the book, they would have all been imitating Hard Day's Night and Help, the video, the set pieces from those.
Iconic scenes and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just something I'm interested in. We got these 10, and as Chris says, many of them did experiment. Look around on YouTube, you'll find a surprising number of actual things where it's a video. It's
well, and bluntly, a lot of what I write about is about the marketplace and how the marketplace dictates. This has been true about the recording industry since its inception, right? Why, for example, are singles 3 to 4 minutes long? Well, because that's what fit on one side of a record. Similarly, why were there no music videos in this period? Well, there kind of were. There just wasn't a market for it because there was no MTV. There was no outlet for it.
Yeah.
It's only in the late 70s that you start having clubs that will play music videos and certain British TV programs that'll play music videos. Once there's a market, they become music videos. But for all intents and purposes, is the first few minutes of Don't Look Back, the Pennebaker movie, a music video? Yes, we wouldn't have called it that because it wasn't a music video, right? It was a standalone, piece of business. It was the length of Subterranean Homesick Blues. It had, Allen Ginsberg hanging out in the background just as window dressing, and it was completely conceptual with Dylan flipping those cards. It's a music video. It's just in terms of the marketplace, there's no outlet for it at that time, so you stick it at the front of a movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the skiing scene from Help is just like the greatest music video ever.
Right. And I mean, Help, even more than A Hard Day's Night, Help is basically a bunch of strung together music videos. That's what it is.
The one for You've Got to Hide Your Love Away is a
beautiful
music video.
And it's a music video that, has a concept and a set, that wide house that they're all in, or the opening segment of Help, where the darts are being thrown at the image of Ringo. Yeah. All Help is a bunch of music videos strung together for all intents and purposes.
And Chris makes a good point too about like there has to be the right outlet and the right medium for it too, though, right? Because like when you're asking the question about music video per se, like rather than being something as part of a movie, you always kind of have to remember a little bit. I think that the more and more I've sort of over the years kind of maintained an interest in the 60s and reading various accounts of people growing up in the 60s. Although the 60s generation is referred to as the TV generation, that's just by default because of when they were born. But most people who took part in the counterculture and stuff, they actually rejected TV for the most part. Like TV wasn't very good. So if there might, even if there had been the outlet, it's possible that it wouldn't have taken off because they just didn't like TV. Now, maybe that would have been their inroad into TV. But when you read most accounts, from hippie culture and stuff like that, they mostly kind of despised TV culture, and they were going to concerts and going to protests and stuff. That was their that was their medium. So it's an interesting conundrum. Like maybe if videos had existed and there had been some kind of show in 1966 that format or played videos, maybe it would have been different. But I don't think the 60s generation was sitting around watching TV that much. I mean, maybe they were, but it didn't matter to them. But by the 80s, like everyone was just so inundated with TV.
Right.
Again, it was just by default. Like I grew up watching TV in the 70s around the clock. Anytime I wasn't at school or out playing outside, watching the Brady Bunch. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. The 70s was more amenable to, or late 70s into the 80s, more amenable to a medium that was going to be shown on TV.
yeah, yeah, that's it.
I don't know if this question can be answered. I said, is there anything that links great videos? Or are they just, the really great ones, or they just kind of stand alone? So can you pick out some common elements if you think about all your favorite videos? So one thing I wrote about in the book was that links a lot of my favorite videos are the gesture, the random gesture, which to me culminates in that Fresh Prince video where I just highlight 7 or 8 things that he does, once they're lodged in your mind. I don't know. Is there anything that links it for you guys? Is it mostly about the performance? And we're talking video can mean anything. It can be like a straight performance video. It can be really weird and conceptual. It can be humorous. It can be serious. I don't know. Is there some things that link the great videos that people are still talking about or still watching?
I find in general the great music videos are not too literal minded. They are kind of they
Okay.
take the song and use it as a jumping off point, but they are more than the song. They
I would
stand
agree with
alone as a piece of art in and of themselves.
you.
You think about a video like Take on Me by Aha, for example. Nothing in the content of Take on Me, the song, suggests that animation or that adventure or, any of what transpires in that video. But it's a brilliant video and it meshes brilliantly with the song and makes the song greater than what it is. You know, um, you think about an artsy video of the early 80s, like Every Breath You Take by the Police, which was directed by Godley and Cream. Gorgeous cinematography. It's not really about what Sting is singing about. That song's about surveillance and,
Right.
monitoring the object of your desire. That video is just about the smokiness and the cinematography and, taking that old Beatles photo and turning it into a live action movie for all intents and purposes with the shadow and the light. Um, a lot of music videos are like that, where the germ is in the song, but what makes the video great is how much further out it goes than that song.
I think that's absolutely true. Just before I go over to you, Scott, the one that I'd point out, in the book, I write a lot about the disconnect between, how did they ever conceptualize this from this song? I would mention Sinead O'Connor's The Emperor's New Clothes, which is just a great song on its own. But nowhere in that song do you picture her, doing these dances and performing for this weird, kind of randomly assembled audience. And we're not even sure where they are. It just, there's what you're talking about, there's some germ in the song, but it doesn't really make sense. The video, in a good way, it doesn't make sense. The video that comes out of that,
And
it's
it
just,
becomes what the video and it becomes what the song means.
yeah,
And once you've seen that video, Sinead's manic dance is part of the ethic of that song. That song is very self-revealing, self-lacerating,
yeah.
accusatory, and her wacky dance is part of that. You never would have pictured it listening to the song alone, but once you see the video, it widens your frame on what the song means.
Yeah. Scott, you think anything links the videos that you love? Or
I mean, I mean, there's a subset of videos that this won't apply to. Videos where there's absolutely no image of the band, and you write about a number of those in your book.
yeah,
Quite a few of the videos you cover in there don't have the band even in them. I don't think, or very little in them, very little. But any ones that kind of, I mean, it's interesting because Chris mentioned the word narrative, and I do agree that they're definitely not a strict narrative according to what the song might be in your, in your interpretation, but they do in a weird way, in a different way, maybe still have to sort of tell a story about the performer. It's not
Mhm.
a it's not a literal story. I guess like maybe I think of it as a correlative to an album cover or something. Like if you watch like one of the videos I had on my list, and it was kind of like a bit of a random choice, I'll be honest. It's not like something I've fixated on over the years, but is the Elvis Costello clip for I Don't Want to Go to Chelsea, which is, pre-video era. That song is 1978. But that video, and somehow I did see that one pretty early. Maybe it was in that TVO thing I mentioned, and it really like just fixed like the image of Elvis Costello in my mind, which I already had partly had from seeing pictures of him. Oops, did we lose Phil? We lost Phil.
Oh my goodness. Hello.
I'm sure he'll come back in. Kind of funny. It's only about his book.
We kind of need him to keep the
Yeah,
conversation
exactly.
going.
Let me message him.
Okay, cool.
That's kind of hilarious. He's coming back now.
All is not lost.
Was it that offensive what I said, Phil?
Sorry about that, you guys. I don't know what happened.
Okay, I said to Chris, you're probably doing what I do at work, fiddling around with your mouse or something.
I don't know why it happened. Sorry. Maybe you
Well,
could
that's okay. My point is basically said, I think. So I just think like any video that has, features the artist, it's going to kind of fix in your mind some image about that artist. And it may, as you guys were talking about with Sinead O'Connor, it may take it in a different direction. Or with the Pet Shop Boys, I talked about them a little bit before we started this. Their early videos like are all of a piece in many ways because every one of them features like Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe very much playing the same role throughout. They're kind of these observers from a little bit of a distance, and they don't smile. They do the classic sort of Pet Shop Boys thing until the being boring video, which is my favorite scene, is when they're actually having a laugh. I don't think they smile up until that one moment, but it fixes sort of, it helps fix as much as the actually album cover. It kind of helps fix that in your imagination if you like the Pet Shop Boys and you watch those videos. Like it really does give you a version of them that somehow plays with the music. So
Can you guys think of Scott and I always talk about the worst kind of soundtrack movie? We call it the Flamingo Kid rule, where a film, literally every song there is with a pointer telling you it's 1968, it's 1967. Can you think of a really clunky video that literally takes the lyrics and tries every point along the way to tell the story of the lyrics? And it's just, why are you doing this? You don't have to answer it now. Maybe it'll pop up to you.
I mean, well, okay. This was considered a great video in its day, but the video for Dire Straits' "Money for Nothing" is
Yeah,
basically just translating
the
Mark
lyrics.
Knopfler's lyrics. And what made it whiz bang for 1985, it looks horrifically dated now, but in
What's all?
1985, those cartoony computer animation, this is like a decade before Toy Story, that was cutting edge for
Yeah,
1985.
yeah.
And
That might.
but it is awfully literal minded, and literally the appliance store workers are walking around with color TVs and microwaves, just like it says in the lyrics of the song.
that's funny. I was
Oh
almost
man.
thinking Hot for Teacher, but I don't know the video well enough. But there's,
Yeah.
literally a teacher, and it's about, guys in the classroom gawking at this hot teacher or whatever. But I don't know beyond that. I mean, if it actually, I mean,
Luckily,
it's such a joke and a comedy too.
I know their sense of humor saves that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not.
It not only saves it, I actually, okay, whatever you think of the rampant sexism of that
Yeah.
video and the
Oh, it's
girls
a
in
good
bikinis,
video.
it's a tongue-in-cheek video. It's beautifully shot. It's
Yeah,
and it's the lyrics plus, because it's kind of the Waldo character is not from the lyrics, right? That
yeah,
whole comedy. And it's so, let's call it pneumatic and over the top,
Yeah.
that it almost blows up or supersizes the song in an appealing way. I've
yeah. No,
always
it's
liked Hot for
entertaining
Teacher.
for sure. I like that video a lot of the time. I just can't remember the details
It's
of it.
kind of like the Beastie Boys' "No Sleep Till Brooklyn." It's so over the top that
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
they get a pass on, you can still watch it and not feel ashamed, I guess.
I mean, but briefly, as long as we're mentioning Van Halen,
Yeah.
what's fascinating about Hot for Teacher is that's a rather expensive, high cinematography video coming just a couple of videos after one of the lowest tech videos that's considered a great video, which is the Jump video. The Jump video is the four guys on a set literally just performing the song, but they're so compelling to watch. Watching Eddie with his hands both on his keyboard and on his guitar when he does the guitar solo, watching Alex beat the shit out of the drums, and more than anything, watching David Lee Roth do those jumps in the air.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's actually deceptively simple, probably cheap to create, and yet, you know, weirdly mesmerizing to watch. You know, sometimes that's all the concept you need.
I didn't put it in the book, but I think my favorite is Panama, which would be more
Panama's
along
pretty
the
good.
lines
That's a good one,
of the
too.
complete disconnect. You know, like I don't know what's going on there. It's just fun to watch.
Isn't he like
Never mind the
flying?
fact that Panama doesn't make sense as a song to begin with.
Yeah, I know. Like,
A strange song and a stranger video. Okay, so let's see. Can a great video be made from or even transform a mediocre song? I think we would all agree that a mediocre video can be made from a great song. But can you take a mediocre? Do you have to, in the end, do you have to really love a video? Do you have to really love the song? I'll answer that for me. I think that's basically true. I need to have I need to already love the song. I don't know. And same thing with a song in a movie. I mentioned to you many times, Scott, there's only a couple of examples I can think of where a movie has taken a song I was kind of so-so on and did something with it that made me, at least for 2 or 3 minutes, love the song. I don't know that that's ever happened to me with a video. What do you guys think?
there's a lot of I remember from my HMV stint for sure. There were always like a lot of really well made, well done videos.
And I don't even mean just well made. I mean,
No, okay, no, but really really good stylish videos that I would say as videos you could even consider them works of art. But ultimately, if the songs haven't really sort of lasted for me, I mean, I would actually say, and I know Phil, you don't have any interest in this person, but at the time, I quite liked Bjork, and I liked a lot of her videos. She made really good videos.
yeah,
She put a lot of care into them, and they're great imagery. But I haven't gone back. Like the songs, I don't know. Did they transform? I wouldn't say they're mediocre songs, but they're just not things I love. And because I don't watch videos, those songs have just kind of disappeared from my
right.
life. So I don't know if that totally answers the question, but
No, it does.
it's gonna come down to the song for me ultimately. Like
Okay.
I don't know.
Chris?
I'm trying to picture artists I really don't like and whether there are music videos of theirs that I have liked better than the song. Like I am renowned. This is kind of a joke. A running gag in Hit Parade is that I am renowned as a Bon Jovi hater. I by and large can't stand anything Bon Jovi have ever recorded.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's ever been a Bon Jovi video that has
Actually,
exceeded my expectations.
Bon Jovi has one hilarious video. Like it's maybe I've never figured out if it's unintentionally. I think it's a little bit of intentionally hilarious. Is the Wanted Dead or Alive? I mean, I couldn't even watch it anymore. But it's almost like it reminds me a bit of REM. I think REM Drive might have been actually taking the piss out of that video a little bit. But it's like the
Prior
ultimate
to
like rock
2024, I
star
would have said
lifestyle video, and it's so over the top and ludicrous that I did find it very entertaining at the time. But I don't like the song. I don't like. I can do with never. I'm with you on Bon Jovi, Chris. Don't worry about that. It's like, oh my god, I've
I
had
am too. The
my
only
life
song,
about Bon Jovi. I have a particular bone against Bon Jovi. So
oh, I can't say, the only song by them I ever legitimately liked was, I think it was I'll Be
living
There
on
for
a
You,
prayer.
the ballad. No, no.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. I liked living on a prayer for a long time, but I don't
I
know.
can. Okay, so I know if we can answer that question, but anyway, uh, how does a great video hold up against a great movie music sequence? I don't know. For me, they're probably about equal, and I can even think of a couple of examples where the great movie music sequence has become the official video. Both Ramones songs. Uh, Bonzo Goes to Bitburg from School of Rock is now the official video for Bonzo Goes to Bitburg. And also, what's the first song on Road to Ruin?
High school, or is it something?
It's from Rock and Roll High School. It's where they're rolling up
I
to
want to
the.
be sedated.
No, it's not. I Want to Be Sedated. It's wait, hey. It's where they're rolling up for their show, and
I just
PJ
want to have
Souls.
something to do.
I just want to have something to do. And they're rolling up in the car, and PJ Souls is having the fight for first place in line. That's now the official video for that.
Richard Meltzer's in that video, right?
No, it's not.
No, he's in there too. I
It's
know
Billy
it's
Altman. It's Billy
and
Altman.
Richard Meltzer. Yeah, he's in there. I've seen picture. I've seen a
Oh,
freeze
okay.
frame, and
They're right at the front of the line then, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. For me, I might give the slight edge to my favorite movie music sequences overall because they're tied in with a movie and they can be more emotional for me. But I think the videos I wrote about in the book probably about an even call for me. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. It's not really an important question.
I mean, one person I would bring up in this frame of reference is Prince. I don't think Prince actually made that many great standalone music videos. Um, I love them because I love him. Prince is
Right.
one of my top five, maybe top three favorite artists of all time.
Yeah.
And yet, many of his videos are a little cheap. They're
Some of them
not.
look dated, I know.
Yeah, like I mean, one that often makes rankings of greatest music videos of all time is Kiss, and Kiss is deceptively simple. I mean, it's just him cavorting with, a gorgeous model, and probably the best special effect in Kiss is Wendy Melvoin's smirk, when she's playing guitar sitting next to Prince.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the reason I bring Prince up is that in terms of this movie thing, you know, Purple Rain is, one of the greatest sort of music video movies of all time, even though, I've seen it multiple times. I saw a restored print of it. This year was the 40th anniversary. I went with a bunch of friends and they all walked out and said, wow, I am reminded of how terrible the acting is in that movie. It's kind of like a high school play turned into a movie. And yet somehow Purple Rain is both terrible and truly, truly great at the same time. And it's because of the magnetism of Prince. It's because of the performances in that movie. By performances, I mean the on-stage performances. And most of the music videos from Purple Rain were basically just,
Yeah.
clips taken from the movie. Both When Doves Cry, Let's Go Crazy,
Montages,
especially, were essentially just chopped and screwed versions of stuff that was in the movie because you didn't need to do anything more than was already in the movie. Um,
I was thinking
Similar
about
Sign of the Times, the movie Sign of the Times, which is a conceptual performance movie. You Got the Look is sort of the great video from that. And there again, they're more or less taking it out of the movie. So same difference.
I was thinking about Prince, and I didn't include him in the book, and it's because I was saying my three favorite videos. Two of them are from Sign of the Times. One is You Got the Look, and the other one is what's the other great song? It's very pop, and
Never take the
Never Take the Place of Your Man.
that never could take place here, man. Those two and Raspberry Beret, I love them all.
Love Raspberry Beret. That's
Yeah,
actually one of my favorite conceptual Prince videos. That's a nice
but it's still basically a performance.
It's basically a performance. It's just he has a great outfit, and I love
Yeah.
what they do with the choreography
There's
with all
stuff
these
going
people doing
on,
this
I
little
know.
step.
Yeah, but there wasn't enough going on in them as videos. As you say, two of them are right out of the movie, and Raspberry Beret, though it does have lots of interesting visual stuff, great song. I just felt they were still basically performance videos.
True.
So, and I don't like the Purple Rain videos at all myself. But anyway, I don't know. It might be just kind of a dead end question.